what you should be doing, which is praying on your own and studying on your own and learning the word on your own, not trying to follow who seems to have the hot hand, so to speak. He will claim that Jesus did not come in the flesh, or that Jesus did not rise from the dead. Again, that's possible. He could do both. He might claim to do both, be Jesus or against Jesus. And again, depending on the theories, the false prophet might be a fake Jesus or a person who's claiming to be Jesus, or his companion, or he or his companion will claim to be Jesus Christ. He will be worshipped by many people. He will hate a nation that initially will have some control over his kingdom, but he will destroy this nation. He will appear to survive a fatal injury, and his name will be related to the 666, and he will be empowered by the devil himself. Those are some of the characteristics. Like I said, they have some opinion in there, and there's wiggle room depending on what your opinion is on that, what the Antichrist actually does. Interestingly enough, in Daniel, we do actually get physical attributes to the Antichrist to give us an idea of who he is. And it says that his look was more stout than his fellows in Daniel 7:20. It means he could be larger, stronger, more imposing, taller, could be taller than the others, politicians or people he associates with. And also the Antichrist will have a stern face or fierce-looking features. The king shall arise having a fierce countenance. New King James says fierce features. Stern face, bold countenance. So you have a stern or a fierce-looking person who's either taller, bigger, stronger, or more imposing than those who are around him. And the other main thing being, of course, that his name relates to 666. That's where, when looking for who the Antichrist is, those seem to be, especially the 666 seems to be the biggest way people try to calculate. And when we go over the list of who the contenders are and who people in the past have been, that usually seems to be the first and sometimes only test, it seems, for some of these names given. But you should remember, you should also be trying to tie in the other features and the other things he does. But like I said before, it's not surprising that somebody would exhibit a personality trait, or maybe even all the personality traits, but that doesn't make them the Antichrist. That makes them in the spirit of Antichrist. There's going to be the definite article, the Antichrist, at the right time, at the right moment in history, and we'll see many prior to that, and many as the ages go by. Like I said, I've mentioned before, I think the devil doesn't really know when his time's up, and I think he sets people up to take the mantle, and but over time, he sets different people up as time goes by. And so those are the physical characteristics. And next we'll go over some of the contenders. Before we go over the modern contenders, it would be a good idea to go back into history and look at those who people thought was the Antichrist, and also some of the people who were like the foreshadowing, the pattern of the Antichrist to come. And of course, Antiochus Epiphanes, he was the pre-Jesus candidate. He was what Jesus spoke of, the abomination of desolations. He was the original person who did it, who destroyed the temple in the Greek times. He was predicted by Daniel, and so he did a lot of the things that the Antichrist will redo. Antiochus Epiphanes. Then shortly after Revelation and that time, people thought Nero was the Antichrist, and they even thought that he would come back from the dead, or he faked his death and would come back. because of the fierce persecution that he laid on the Christians, the fiercest they had seen to that time. Um, and of course, in certain circles, any pope at any time is a candidate, um, because they seem to fit the Whore of Babylon motifs so well. Except that it would seem more like that the pope would be the candidate for false prophet, and not so much the Antichrist himself. But that comes up. Charlemagne, who lived from 742 to 718 AD. He was the first person to get control of Europe, and that's why people thought potentially that he was. And as he tried to put together the Roman Empire again, I think he started the Holy Roman Empire. In the 1800s, you had Napoleon, mainly because he came from nowhere, and of course he tried conquering Europe, and therefore potentially the world. An interesting side note: Aleister Crowley, who was a male witch who lived in England, and from 1875 to 1947, that his nicknames were the Beast and 666. He has some interesting ties to the founder of the Church of Scientology, and there's some conspiracy theories revolving around ceremonies that he had L. Ron Hubbard and I forget the other person who was supposed to be with him in the desert of New Mexico carried out after Aleister Crowley's death, because Aleister Crowley died in 1947, which was the same year as the Roswell crash, and supposedly they did some sort of ceremony of opening gates or something that in this conspiracy theory that opened the gates, and then the UFO phenomenon started in modern times to a greater extent. Of course, that's a conspiracy theory, but that's the year he died, and he claimed to be the Beast, but he did more for popularizing the occult. That's sort of what he's did. His legacy has been that a lot of rock groups and a lot of people use his satanic teachings to go by this to the Church of Satan and so forth. So to a certain degree way it applies to him, but he died. He wasn't it. He was just a purveyor of evil. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, again, a lot of the times U.S. presidents, any president practically, like the Pope, potentially becomes a candidate because of the position of power they have, and they usually exhibit some form of characteristic that people think the Antichrist have. Roosevelt, his name added up to 666, and he presided over the Great Depression, and tried to take a lot of power to himself. But in a way, most politicians fit into the bill because they all are arrogant and they all like doing things their own way, and they all want more power, generally speaking. Benito Mussolini, again, we're getting into the group now of the would-be world conquerors. Of course, the thing with Mussolini, he was, Hitler's lapdog, and it wasn't likely that he would ever get out from under his boot. But of course, but Hitler died, and maybe had, things gone a different way, then, Mussolini maybe would have outlived him, and then maybe potentially, but of course he died, and Adolf Hitler, who of course people ascribe to him because he did a lot of villainous things, but of course he's dead. It wasn't the time for the real Antichrist to show, which went to, then it would go to Joseph Stalin, who also exhibited a lot of it. He killed a lot of people, very power hungry, but again he died, so time passed. Some would even say the Spanish dictator Francisco Franco, but again he passed. Although I wouldn't say he would have exhibited too much as far as characteristics, but just the fact that he was part of the fascist movement. But he died, and then it's more people now think more of the royalty of Spain now, the people that think in that venue. Of course, John F. Kennedy was thought to be, um, and in the Democratic convention he received 666 votes, and then of course, and so some people were already thinking that because of the 666 votes he got from the in the Democratic convention. Then when he was shot in the head